What's up, guys? So today we have another podcast with Vigorous Steve. I thought the last one went really well. There were a lot of follow-up questions sent to me in DMs or in the comments section, and he seemed like a cool guy to talk to, very knowledgeable, so I wanted to have him back on. I thought today we would have a cool segment where we do some Q&A. We kind of touch on some things from the last podcast, and at the end, in part two, which is going to be on Steve's channel, so make sure you check that out, there we're going to have an actual full analysis of my very comprehensive recent blood work. So I've talked about blood work a little bit on the channel. Steve does a lot of that, and so I thought it would be cool to kind of collab on that and let you guys see what an analysis of that looks like for those of you who are concerned with your health. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast, and make sure you check out part two on Steve's channel, link below. All right, everybody. So back on the podcast today, we have Vigorous Steve. How you doing, man?
What's up, guys? How are you? It's been a while. It's been, what, a month ago that we did our last podcast?
Yeah, I think so. Honestly, man, it's weird. Like, I'll have people back on sometimes, and I'll realize I haven't talked to them in like a year. Like, there's so many people in the space that you connect with. Sometimes you just kind of
Right.
lose track of things.
Yeah, and you all follow each other, right, online. So you think you're like in
Right.
close connection, but
Exactly.
we're just watching each other's YouTube videos.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing to talk about. It's like when you watch somebody, right, you feel more connected with them, right? I mean, this
Right.
is why all of us, as we've started YouTube channels, have all gotten way more clients than we probably ever had before. And
Absolutely.
that's actually one of the things with my YouTube channel that I noticed is like back in, I don't know, when I started watching YouTube fitness in like 2011 and 12, and you would see these videos and like you'd feel like you knew the people you were watching. And like I wasn't going to make a YouTube channel just to like respond to my like their videos, like my thoughts on their videos. But now I've actually talked to a lot of these people. And you'll realize, and I have this sometimes clients will reach out to me and I'll realize like, oh yeah, this person actually knows quite a lot about me. And
But you have no idea who they are.
Yeah, you kind of forget that sometimes,
Right. It's very weird. And, especially if you put yourself out there on YouTube frequently and you talk about some personal stuff,
Yeah.
then everybody feels like they know you. But then every time you talk to other people, as well as it's other people from the same space, then you have no idea who you're talking to, but they know everything about you. And it's even weirder when you meet in the real world.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Steve, how's it going with this and this and this? And I'm like, hey, and who are you?
Yeah, right.
And they mention their username or something like that. And
Right.
Or we interacted in the past through direct messages.
Right.
But, for both of us, I'm sure you get a lot of messages every day as well. So it's hard to keep track sometimes.
Right.
My clients, I do remember. Thank God.
Yeah. The clients I definitely remember. So
that would be crazy, I'm not that busy yet. Yeah.
Right.
No, but it's very good, especially when you get to know other people in this space, like through podcasts or talking behind the scenes. Then it's it's very interesting. You see who people are and who you want to keep in touch with, and some of the guys
you don't maybe
like
right.
one time,
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's funny. I was watching. I mentioned before we started recording, I was watching your recent podcast with Leo and Derek from More Plates, More Dates. I didn't realize is Derek only 24? Is that what he said?
No, I was joking. He's 27, 28.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say
10 years younger than I am.
That's a lot younger. Okay, so he's about my age because it's funny. Like he and Leo, and I kind of mentioned this before. They both have some like very peculiar things about their past that I have had like almost exactly like just like very relatable things. I mean, even to the point that like Leo and I have had the same like diagnoses and things. Like he's got like athletic heart. That's what I've been diagnosed with. He had IBD. I have IBD. He even said like he has that mutation of red beard hairs, and like I'll get that sometimes. Like just like it's like random things. So it's just kind of funny. And like when I talk to him, like even like off air a little bit, it's like, yeah, like we're both kind of neurotic and I've looked into similar research and things like that. So
I think it all contributes to success, right? The neuroticism and the OCD tendencies that we all have, because you're so on point and you want everything your way.
Right.
And that usually leads down a path of, being successful in the fitness industry.
Yeah. It's also why like, I'm a dentist and there's like associates and there's owners. And like when I've been in like a ownership role or like running a practice, I'm like on point and I do very well. And if I have to just be like an associate listening to somebody or following them around, like I really don't do well in that role.
I couldn't do it either. When I was doing business consulting, it was always my way or the highway. And it was very difficult to get my point across as a junior business consultant, because some of those guys have been in the game for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, well, what do you know? You're fresh out of, college, fresh out of university.
Right.
And then you really have to fight for your position. So after a couple of years of that, I was like, yeah, I'm better off on my own. And but the weird thing is, like, now that I'm on YouTube, you create a following,
Hmm.
not the following of YouTube subscribers or Instagram followers, but more people that take heed to what you have to say, which is
Hmm.
weird. I never thought I'd be in a position like that,
Yeah.
where you can actually have influence. It's a terrible word, right? Influence.
Influence. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what you're doing. Like, you can actually give people a reason to change their practices,
Sure.
whether that's from cycling hygiene or certain diet practices or training styles. Or I nobody listened to me for training advice, but it's mostly for PED content and how to stay healthy while using PEDs. But you can have some sort of influence, over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's good to get the messages, like after 6 months, like, oh, dude, you know, you changed
Yeah.
my life in these kinds of aspects, which is very, very good to see. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
and I
good to
think,
see.
I mean, just inherently, you're going to attract people like you, and so, like, not
Hmm.
surprisingly, like, I do attract a lot of people who are kind of like neurotic and OCD about details. But it's helpful because
Right.
it's like, like, I was never somebody who had, like, it's not like I started lifting and had this amazing response to lifting. So I get a lot of people
Yeah.
who,
Right.
also have dealt with years of frustration over that. And it can be helpful, even like just mentally, to find like, oh, there's somebody like me, and like they've come a decent, like they've come pretty far,
Right.
and maybe I can do that too. There's just a relatability to it.
Right. Yeah, and the world is big enough that there's, even though you're such a small niche, the niche is so big when you compare it to the rest of the world, that there might be, 20 to 100,000 people out there with the same scenario, and YouTube reaches pretty much everybody, or at least
Right.
the English speaking people.
Right.
And so you can always build your niche, and then you
Sure.
find out that your niche is gigantically large, and that you're no longer in the minority, you're actually in the majority.
Right. Right.
It's very,
I was going to ask
very
you
funny to
guys,
figure out.
because I think, we talked a little bit about like YouTube growth and things like that. And you have
Hmm.
Jason Blaha, Jason Blaha.
Yeah, of course. He's
Yeah.
been around
So,
for ages.
right, right. And I talked with Leo about this, and Jason had this like huge trajectory up. And then it's
Hmm.
funny. I actually made a video that was pretty successful called, like, relatively successful, called is Greg Doucette the new Jason Blaha? Because it was kind of like, all right, you had somebody who had a channel for a little while, didn't have any
Hmm.
growth, all of a sudden started making natty or not videos, had this huge trajectory. The difference is obviously Greg Doucette is much more successful than Jason,
Yeah,
and,
and he has the background.
right, right, that's what I mean. And so I think people take it more seriously, but you still see that, and you kind of see this cycle on
Hmm.
YouTube about that. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting, and maybe you guys can elaborate. I know you guys have made, or at least Leo's made, videos on how
Hmm.
Greg Doucette's practices are unethical and the way he goes about it. But to me, I see he and Derek make kind of similar videos. I mean, they're both discussing if somebody is natty or not.
Hmm.
What do you think the difference is there, of like why maybe you guys would say, well, Greg Doucette is kind of unethical in how he does it, but Derek is,
It's
it's all
so
fine.
so it's a little bit hard for me to say, because I never watched Greg's videos,
Mm,
because I found them extremely annoying.
yeah, I'm not a big
But
fan.
basically, it's similar setup, right, between Derek and Greg. But what Greg does is he takes from the fitness industry,
Hmm.
whereas basically in reality, the fitness industry gave him who he is, right?
Right.
Bodybuilding allowed him to get up to a certain point, get some fame, get his body. I think most of his success comes from bodybuilding, and now he's taking from the fitness industry by, from the videos that I've seen, he's making fun of people.
Hmm.
So that's why I always try to stay away from the natties or not, or giving opinion videos, because I want to contribute to the fitness industry, not take away from it.
Right.
And what Derek does, he takes somebody as a subject and then explains, what's going on to a more general audience.
Right.
Like he's getting a little bit more general, a little bit less specific, and does it more in an explanatory fashion, and then tries to interject some really good in-depth information that people can actually use. So you look at it as like a study of a single person, and then the case is being examined and explained. That's what Derek does, and he's very good at that.
Yeah.
And with Greg, it's always like, oh, you have this guy, let's make fun of him, and I'm so much smarter, I have so much better genetics, and so that's why I can't watch it.
Yeah.
I can't watch. That's not my kind of content, because you can You can do it slow and steady, like John Meadows I was taking as an example. You can do it slow and steady and just keep producing quality content. And even John Meadows now a little bit more vanilla.
Right.
It's more vanilla content. I can't say I blame him. He's got a supplement company. All his hardcore in-depth stuff is behind the paywall in the membership website.
Right.
And and with YouTube, you always have to wonder. If you talk about performance enhancing drugs openly, is my channel going to be deleted?
Sure. Yeah.
And that's scary, when you put so much effort into it, because they can take it away like this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that stuff is definitely scary. I think just in general, and this is kind of you and I have experienced when like talking to somebody. It's also different when like you just hear something indirectly. Like I have a feeling like if you talk to Greg Doucette in person, I'm sure he's probably a different personality, but
He's
it's tough.
a very knowledgeable businessman.
Yeah, probably.
And I can't say I blame him, because when you look at his earlier content, it's mostly aimed towards bodybuilders, right? But let's be honest, bodybuilders don't spend money. And if they go with a coach, they go with the either the best, or the guy that, like, I recently raised my prices, right? And I priced myself out of the bodybuilding market, because I don't think bodybuilders are going to pay for the coaching rates and the consultation rates that I charge right now.
Yeah.
But I had to increase it because the demand is going up to the point I'm flooded with work. I can't handle any more clients, so I can just say no or increase the rates and try my luck, right?
People get upset sometimes when somebody's just like, oh, this is egregious that somebody charges this much. And for certain things, I can understand that, right? I mean, especially if it's, we're all talking about things that nobody needs, right? Like, obviously, this is different than like in medicine, like pharmacies charging ridiculous prices.
No, nobody's sick in bodybuilding. Yeah. Well, we all get some medical, get some medical stuff going on, underneath.
But in general, but to me, I'm like, dude, like, I don't blame anybody. Like, it makes sense to me if you're super busy, increase the prices, and then you'll be a little bit less busy. And then if you get super busy again, like, that's just how, I mean, that's just like basic finances, right? I mean, that just makes sense.
Progression of finances.
Yeah.
So I can understand why Greg was charging like $20,000 a year.
Yeah.
And
hey, if somebody's going to pay that, I mean,
there are people out there, man. They increase my race, but you're slowly spacing yourself away from the fitness industry.
Yeah.
And with that, when you realize, like, oh, I can actually charge $500 for a 1 hour consultation, which is high. I understand this, but the bodybuilders are no longer paid. So, or, the hardcore fitness enthusiasts are no longer willing to pay it unless they're financially successful. So you have to change your content for the guys that, are willing to pay that kind of information. So now you can see by my thumbnails, I've changed the direction of my channel as well, because I realized this hardcore bodybuilding content where you talk about vasodilators before the bodybuilding show and particular growth hormone loading protocols, it doesn't help your business.
Yeah. Well, my friend, he has a podcast, Abel Chabai. We always joke about, and this isn't a knock on you, obviously, but just generally you'll see it. It's like every account on Instagram will be like, I target wealthy professionals and businessmen, right? Like it's always just like the tagline, right? Like I exclusively work with like high achieving, high earning, and successful men, something like that. So, which, I mean, it's a good market, but it's just some of these people you look at and you're like, no, you don't. Like, there's no way you have these clients. You can tell sometimes when somebody's completely bullshitting.
No, I know, but it's a lot of people are faking it until you make it, right? And the reason why, again, I'm just keeping flooding full with clients. Like today, I got 3 client requests again.
Nice.
And where are these people coming from? I only have 14,000 subscribers, which is not much compared to some of the bigger guys. Sure. And but it's good results for a year on YouTube. I'm happy with it.
No, I mean, I'd be right. Sure.
But I think at one point, like when you're in demand, you're slowly pricing yourself out of the fitness community. And then you have to go with the guys that are wealthy and can actually incorporate some of the advice. Because let's say back when my services were more affordable, then the clients were complaining that the advice was expensive.
Yeah, right.
The incorporation, like, hey, I expect you to do blood work every 3 months or maybe every monthly. I want you to buy only pharmaceutical grade growth hormone, not this generic underground, no MK677, please.
Right.
If you want to work with me, this, all organic food and this. So the advice would be more expensive. So now that the rates are higher, the the people who can actually sign up for coaching and are willing to do the blood work, they can actually afford the advice and incorporate it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's that, and that's why I started those ebooks, which are taking forever because I want them to be correct, to have an alternative, affordable approach for the hardcore fitness and bodybuilding guys. So yeah, I only have $25 or $50 to spend. I'll get access to your advice that way, and
Right. Yeah.
I'll
It's
put
almost
it
like a
into
tiered
practice
system.
myself.
If you want
Yeah,
to work with me individually, it's this much, but hey, here's a
right.
bunch of, content. And then also we all give free content, right? We all provide a lot of free content
Yeah,
on
it's not
YouTube.
like I
So,
don't upload every day.
right.
Right. So you can take from that what you will, but what's weird about social media is that people only watch the video of the day, right? So we upload this today and it will go up, the views will go up a couple thousand and it will decline and it will fade into nothingness.
Yeah. Right.
Instagram is like notorious for this. Like it's a picture of the day.
Yeah.
And there's no search engine, there's hashtags, but there's
Right.
no
Yeah.
search engine. So you would never be able to find a certain picture again
Yeah.
unless you go scrolling, which
No, it's
takes
super
forever and you
annoying.
get
Yeah.
right. But with YouTube, you can with the keywords and the title, and so people can find it back later. But most of them they don't do it.
Right.
So
I've not done it because I don't think it would be a great idea, but I've almost considered uploading old videos and not to
yeah,
be
do it.
like,
I've done the same thing,
not like my
and
super old videos. Like my first ones, I'd be like, okay, this was not like good quality, but some of them I'm like, this is a good video. And half of you haven't seen it. So just put it out. Same thing with Instagram posts. Like I have posts from 2 years ago. Nobody's looking at that anymore. Like, and it's still the good content.
remember.
So
They
I don't
can't
know.
remember.
Yeah.
So and then you just package it up nicely with everything you learned in the meantime, and
Right.
then you
Right.
bring it to a larger audience.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's
Yeah,
I've done
especially when
that.
you have like growth like yours. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, in that case, really, I mean, almost none of them have probably even seen it.
And you go by the comments, you read the comments and said, I've watched this before. No comments like this, even though I made comparable videos in the past. And then every time it gets more in depth and more specific, I'll probably do the same video a year later, for the new audience, because nobody goes back. And when your old video has 500 views and the new video gets 5,000 views,
Right.
and maybe the next time gets 50,000 views, again, it's revenue, so it's just common business practices. And, I saw that at some of the other YouTube channel where you're like, I watched this video before, but in a different package.
Yeah.
Right? I don't hear anything new, but I'm not going to bitch about it in the comment section, but most of the audience hasn't seen it.
I think
and
the
if
loyal,
they have seen it, they've forgotten it.
Right. Like the loyal followers. So like I watched Omar Isuf for a long time.
Yeah.
And so when I first got into like the YouTube scene, I didn't watch him. I almost was like, who's this guy kind of thing. Like I almost felt like I just didn't need to, but I was like, all right, I keep seeing his videos everywhere. I'll subscribe. And I watched his videos like on and off for years. And I was like, dude, if I see another how to grow your back video from this guy, like I can't. Like there literally must have been 10 of like the same videos. But I know I wouldn't make comments on it, but I was like, it makes sense, right? Because like for me, and one of the nice things about having it as like a side gig is that like I make videos when it's specifically something I want to talk about. I have no pressure at all to, I got to come up with content. I mean, I'd like to make consistent content, and I do. I have one podcast every single week consistently.
It's a full-time job. It's
it is
freaking full-time job.
And so I like that I don't have that responsibility, but like I understand for somebody that's like this is his career. So yeah, he does have to make the same video freaking every 6 months because he's growing and people haven't seen it and it's getting the views. So it's like
you learned something in the meantime, or you forgot something the last time. Like sometimes I forget something specific and you see like ton of the same questions. You're like, oh man, I should have mentioned that. But then again, sometimes I've had like steroid profile video series, and I mention everything.
Yeah.
And every video you see the views declining to the point you get to the dosing videos, and then it goes up again.
Right.
So yeah, because then how much Trimbalone do I take?
Right.
Nobody cares about the medical history or train cough or the the anxiety and the night sweats and all that stuff. Nobody cares. Just the dosing. How much train do I take?
I'll just wrap up the social media talk with just a quick story because at some point I got to connect with both these guys, and I owe Leo a call actually. But so I reached out to Jason Blaha, I don't know, months ago about having him on the podcast, and I was a little back and forth about it because he does have a questionable reputation, and but I was like, it's my podcast. Like if I want to talk to somebody, I think it could be an interesting conversation. And then he and I really appreciated this. He warned me that like, look, just so you know, I still have some of these crazy stalkers, and like if I go on your podcast, they might come after you. And like I said, like I don't need like my family getting attacked or something, some crazy. I mean, literally, like I would hear
people do
these.
that today to Jason?
Apparently, still. I mean, this is again. I'm just telling you what he told me. So I
Yeah.
appreciated the warning. He said, if you're comfortable with that, I'll come on. So I wanted to think about it. But and I feel bad that like he's tried to remove himself for so many years from that. He still gets it. It's a shame. So then Leo came on my podcast and we talked about Jason quite a bit. So then Jason messaged me and was like, not happy with it. And so Jason and I talked for a while. And I'm like, look, and I sent him voice messages because stuff through text always gets
right.
So we talked for a little bit, and I was like, "Look, man,
going
like,
on a voice message is way better."
right. And so I was like, "Look, like, I am a very open person. I'm putting it all out there, and I like to be very forward. So like, even if I don't like to say anything behind somebody's back, and to the point where if I've talked about somebody and then they'll come on my podcast, I'll specifically go out of my way to tell them, hey, just so you know, like." I said this and this about you, like, because I just don't want like something that was said, So I said the same thing to both of them. I was like, look, like I'm not going to like hide anything. If they want to both come on my podcast, that'd be great. They can have their discourse, right? But Leo, but then Jason made a video saying a lot of negative stuff about Leo. And I think he kind of mentioned me in the video. Jason did. So Leo reached out to me about it. So I said, I owe him a call at some point. But I think my words were probably a little bit twisted because I don't speak negatively on almost anybody. So, but it's just funny when like you just get like one person saying something about this person and this person contacts you about it.
It goes very, very fast.
I'm like, let's all get in a room somewhere and just talk
it out
because there's clearly some misrepresentation, misunderstanding.
But you got to remember that in bodybuilding, there's a lot of insecurity and a lot of hormones.
Yeah, right.
So you get insecure people and a lot of hormones in the same room that usually ends up, and then messages get misconstrued, whether that's through text or even through voice messages. It's that's why I try to stay away from the drama. But I'm sure at one point there will be a video about me like, this Steve, this guy doesn't know anything, something like that. Right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter how nice you are. Somebody's gonna make something to talk about.
If I can get away like being generally loved, like John Meadows, then my job is complete.
John is definitely one of the guys who pretty much everybody loves. Yeah.
Besides Aaron Singerman, but
yeah, I've actually got John coming on in like 2 weeks. I haven't talked to him I haven't talked to him live since his heart attack. So it'd be interesting to catch up. Yeah. But because we actually spoke like 2 weeks before his heart attack. He was on my podcast and I was asking him about his heart health, and then that happened, and it was just like, damn, like
scary. I was wondering if it had to do with COVID because a lot of people during COVID got some clotting issues. Like I think what was his name? The guy, he got COVID as well. He had like a blood clot in his leg. Man, I forgot his name. He's on the Fouad Abiad podcast every week.
I never watched it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so maybe it's related to that. You can ask him. Maybe
I didn't even know really who Fouad was until I heard Leo talk about him.
Yeah. Leo has a different space. Strong opinion.
Yeah, right. I know. So moving on. You mentioned that you are off everything last time we talked. Off all hormones.
I'm off. I was off like 100% drug free for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And now I'm back on the growth hormone.
Okay. So just growth hormone right now.
Just growth hormone. Nothing.
How's your weight?
94.5. But I am fasting, so that's what 200 something, close to 200 pounds.
Yeah. How long have you been fasting?
5 days.
Nice. I did a 3-day fast.
Yeah, I saw that. Let's talk about it. You still trained, right? How did it go?
So that's my second 3-day fast. And honestly, like both of them were not hard. You're just a little bored because you realize how much time goes into food, right? I mean, if you're like making food and like, now I was working, so that helped for sure. Right. But what I noticed, like I would get home and it would be, I work some late hours sometimes. I get home at like 7:30 and normally I would make food. I'd, maybe watch some YouTube, whatever, while I'm eating and, get ready. And I'd come home and I'm just like, guess I'll go to bed. Like,
yeah, what do I do now, right?
Yeah, it was just kind of like, go ahead.
And then the problem is you associate certain things with food. So you would start watching YouTube. Normally I would have food. And then you get a little bit anxious. Like, you start to look around like, well, something is missing.
Yeah,
You
right.
get that a couple days in a row, and then you get, a little bit. Then the hunger starts to come, but it's not physical hunger; it's mental hunger because you get bored.
Yeah, right. So I did test my ketones, and I was obviously in ketosis. I was like
Yeah.
2.5 millimoles, but I felt good. I
Oh,
mean, and
2.5. Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's
so
not too high. Yeah.
it's not really high, no, no. But even when I do like a ketogenic diet, which is I don't eat a high protein ketogenic diet, but even just like moderate protein, I never get into like deep ketosis. I'm at like zero point 0.5 to 1. Like it's just kind of there. I know like
And
somebody like
that's
Dom
even after prolonged ketosis?
months and months, yeah.
Okay. I
Now,
usually
if I
get
brought my
very high.
protein a lot lower and brought my fat
Hmm.
higher, then it probably would. But I mean, I was eating like 180 grams of protein. I mean, it wasn't like crazy
That's
amounts. I
not
mean,
so high. Yeah, that's
no,
not so
no.
high. No, well, it could
So
be. Everybody's different, right? And again, you don't want the ketones in your blood; you want them in your brain.
yeah,
So
it's
it's just a measure to measure, but it doesn't indicate how deep the actual state of ketosis is. If you're productive and you feel good, then
do you follow
mission
Dom
accomplished.
D'Agostino? You don't know who it
I
is?
got to be honest. I'm so busy right now that I
Okay.
barely have time to follow anybody. Like
Dom is like
yeah.
well researched keto guy, been doing it for 10 years. Like he's when
Hmm.
I think of like one of the foremost experts on ketosis, I think of Dom D'Agostino.
Okay.
His PhD is in it. He's got a actually I think he's got a neuroscience background. He's
Okay.
worked with NASA and all that for applications of ketogenic diet for like deep diving and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So um, but yeah, I mean, I've had stints like since I was in high school with keto, and I like it for certain applications. But that, and even like the fasting, like I felt great when I did the fasting. But honestly, like
Hmm.
right when I got back to, so I have like some GI issues, and like right when I
Right.
got back to like my diet, it was like immediately just returned. So
Yeah. No, it's something you have to actually keep doing. If you have some GI issues, especially if they're related to carbohydrates, it's just something you have to do. But for bodybuilding, it's not very enjoyable to have no
right,
pump after 6 reps and no more energy. So I've been doing ketogenic diet for like 15 years, so I'm incredibly fat adapted,
oh really,
and that's why it's so
continuously,
easy to. No, I mean I have my bouts with carbohydrates.
okay.
Obviously, I mean Sunday is all no limits.
Oh, every
The
Sunday.
carbohydrate, yeah, every Sunday I still have nice
Oh,
food. But
okay.
now going forward, I probably won't do that because I'm trying to resolve this non-alcoholic fatty liver
Right, right,
disease.
right. How's that going?
50% done, which is pretty slow.
Based on 50% based on what?
So I had an ultrasound 4.5 months ago. I just released that liver update video, but it's released yesterday. So 4.5 months ago, I did the ultrasound and it showed like blurry echosonicity. So you see that the outlines of the liver are not clear. And then I did an ultrasound about 3 weeks ago, and it's more clear. So I had 3 second opinions, and they gave me between 40 to 50% improvement. So
Mm,
considering all the supplementation I put into practice, and going off cycle and restricting my caloric intake for a while and doing cardio, and I did basically everything right
yeah.
except the SERMs, the selective estrogen receptor modulators. And maybe it was a wrong decision to come off cycle because staying on hormone replacement might be able to speed up the process in the resolvement. So
Mm,
two mistakes, well, one mistake, but they're related. So I could have been a little bit further down the line, but the doctors that told me said, probably wouldn't have been resolved by now. So other proactive approach is 50% improvement. So I'm going to fast until it's resolved.
yeah. I
And
mean,
that
you're going to
that might,
fast continuously, or you're going to just keep. Oh, really? Oh, damn.
but it will be
Wow.
fasting mimicking with vegetables. So I
Okay.
have like a mountain of vegetables. I'm basically a bunny, a rabbit,
Yeah.
right now.
Wow.
So I'm going to do vegetables only
Are
with,
you
the
working out?
nutrient. No, I stopped working out 3 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not a bodybuilder right now. I'm a little vegan, skinny little vegan right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that would
So
be tough for me.
it is, but I'm still using, growth hormone and a little bit of an appetite suppressant. So, it's manageable for now.
Yeah.
But let's see if I can last, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah. Oof, man.
It's going to be tough. So I think the reason there's so much things related to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the more research I do, the more confused I get, and the more I
Yeah.
discuss with 3 different specialists, the less obvious it becomes which direction I need to follow and what the actual cause was, because everybody's saying something different,
Yeah.
right? So I just looked into the logical aspect. Okay, there's fat in the liver. It needs to be removed. There's two directions it can go in, or three. One of them is being actively burned within the liver for metabolic processes. One of them is exiting into the bloodstream and being burned off with other tissues. And another one is exiting the liver through bile acid. So no intake of fat or minimal, improving bile acid excretion, improving metabolic rate by limiting caloric intake and making sure the energy expenditure still goes up. Let's give that a month until I become non-cognitive, and then my wife can pull the plug, said, hey, it's time to eat. But I've done these fasts so many times now, and it's the fifth day now,
What's the
and I'm
longest you
still good.
fasted?
The longest was like 6.5 days, but that's
Okay.
like right after you schedule your deload with a fast, and you get a little bit of autophagy that way, and you recover, and then by the sixth day you get pretty hungry. But now I didn't train for 2 weeks. I still did cardio, so I didn't train for 2 weeks. I did my liver enzyme test, which all came into range,
Yeah.
but my ultrasound showed that I still had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So now we're going to go the hardcore extreme route and just eat vegetables until it's resolved.
Yeah, it's and liver enzymes is one of the things I wanted to talk about actually, because
Mm.
I've always found that bodybuilders will always look for excuses to justify their, the
Yeah,
detrimental health things that they do.
guilty.
And it happens. And so I see this all the time with liver enzymes. Doctors will say, or not doctors, bodybuilders will say, and this has truth to it. They'll say,
Mm.
oh, my liver enzymes are elevated because I'm a bodybuilder, because I work out. So here's the
Yeah.
thing. I know a lot of people who work out, who are natural, who have had blood
Mm.
work done. I've had extensive blood work done. I've had my
Mm.
liver enzymes tested numerous times. I told you how insanely elevated mine were when I was
Right.
taking that oral.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, ridiculous.
Right.
I never have elevated liver enzymes anymore. Now I'm one person, but almost no natural people I know do. And yet
No,
almost
very little.
what's that?
Very little. Very little naturals have
Yeah.
extremely elevated liver enzymes. So the
Or,
top of the range is usually around 40,
yeah.
50 sometimes if they did it like a day after some sort of crazy workout session.
Right. Right.
But I have seen it in people with chronically elevated liver enzymes. And funnily enough, those usually come from an obese background.
Mm,
So they probably have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease undiagnosed as well.
mm.
But as soon as I went on cycle and my training intensity increased and my ability to create a higher hypertrophy stimulus, those liver enzymes slowly increased.
Yeah. But
You know?
I mean, again, my personal belief is that
Mm.
a lot of these bodybuilders are actually doing some liver damage. Because here's the thing, people think that, oh, well, orals are horrible for your
Mm.
liver and injectables are completely safe for your liver. Plenty of injectables damage your liver. I mean, like,
Yeah,
not a question. And yet,
Trenbolone hands down.
yeah, even studies on equipoise show
Mm-hmm.
liver enzyme, or not just liver
Yeah,
enzyme elevation, but when they actually look at like the cells and they do biopsies, there
yeah,
are
some
changes.
fibrosis there. Yeah,
Yeah,
cirrhosis and fibrosis, same as in the kidneys.
right.
Trenbolone and boldenone, and even some studies show that nandrolone at certain dosages, kidney toxicity. So there's very limited selection what we can use, but for the sake of muscle, we're willing to see all of that through the fingers,
Right, right.
as long as you get your big biceps. And then again, you get that negative health ramification, then you sober up a little bit. But we all go through the same process, and we don't listen. I didn't listen,
Hmm.
and 99% of my audience probably doesn't listen to everything I have to say either.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I'm
dude,
still stubborn sometimes,
yeah,
doing certain things.
yeah. I mean, when I was 20, 21, and I mean, I think I was much more educated on the topic than most people, even back then.
Hmm.
But you we're all susceptible to bias, right? And you
Yeah,
find the stuff that, well, this person didn't have issues and this person didn't have issues and this person, so there you go. And you just kind of, and then
it just
the stories of something happened, well, they had a pre-existing condition, they must have, I'm sure they did, maybe they just didn't know it, but
right.
they must have had something, you know what I mean? If they just did this, they'd be fine.
You just try to justify continuous use, and
Yeah,
this is the curve because nobody wants to sacrifice their muscle for anything.
right.
Nobody, and most of us they stop for a negative health ramification, and that's just the reality of it. And it doesn't matter how much research you do until you see it like a real alarm sign.
Hmm.
You're just gonna keep going.
Yeah,
Just gonna,
yeah,
or you have a coach that says, "Hey, the F are you doing? Let's
Right.
cut it back, which I've done with several times with my clients, but I don't have a coach. So I'm my own coach. And then I looked at my liver enzymes just going up and up, slowly, steady. So I'm training harder, I'm getting stronger. And somehow you're judging it, justifying it for yourself because when you take a week off, those liver enzymes come right back into range.
Yeah.
And they say, I'm fine. And the rest of the liver enzymes, they come from all the supplements that I'm taking or
Right.
because I'm continuing, but in reality, the liver enzymes, they should be around 10 to 20, 10 to 15 units per liter. Mine haven't been that low in maybe 3-4 years.
Wow.
And it like when I was traveling, when I traveled through China and Hong Kong and stuff, I did my blood work in Asia, and my liver enzymes were elevated too, like 50 or 60, and that's just from eating street food. And
I
who
remember you
knows what
said
was
that. You did that. Yeah.
yeah, who knows what was inside, So it's always a little bit hard to pinpoint. That's why I'm happy I did these ultrasounds, because my latest liver enzyme showed like 30 to 35 units per liter, which is technically in range. And then you do your ultrasound, it's like, yeah, liver enzyme or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease still present.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit improved. So good luck in the next couple of months.
Something that I talked with, Cornelius Parkin. I know he was on Leo's
Yeah,
podcast.
I think he had when he was on your podcast, and I think he
Yeah.
reached out to me through
Oh, did he?
Instagram at one point. Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. It's like I said, it's very hard to remember who
Right.
reaches out, because it's hard to remember. Yeah, 40, 50 messages a day. It's crazy.
Yeah. He definitely get more than me. I get a handful per day, but he's a
Mm-hmm.
cool guy. Impressive physique, and
Mm-hmm.
we were
He's
talking.
the IFBB judge, right? Or no?
I don't know if he's a judge. I'm not sure.
No, I'm
Um,
confused. It's something else.
but
Sorry.
we were talking, and I said, like, because he just really loves to train. So even when he
Mm-hmm.
went from enhanced to natural, he was still training. And I said, I would have to, if I did like a big cycle and then I came off, and I would have to try to keep everything I could, because it would just kill me to see it go
Right.
down. But
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of like, I don't know if I would say look down on, but like I've had friends who they will do a cycle and then they
Mhm.
will come off and they'll just stop working out. And I'm like, dude, like, you're so lazy because you're just working out when you have gear. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like,
Yeah.
they're smaller than me, and I'm
Mhm.
not using gear because they'll just come off and they'll do this back and forth, back and forth. However, I will say that psychologically, I could almost see, like, let's say you were going to lose 30 pounds of muscle if you came off gear
Mhm.
and didn't work out, but you'd
Right.
lose, let's say, 20 pounds of muscle if you came off gear but continued to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Psychologically, it almost might be easier to say, I'm just removing myself from this whole bodybuilding sphere for now, and I don't have to go in and each and every workout realize how much weaker I am. You know what I mean? Even though the end result is worse, psychologically, that might be easier.
So the way I justify it for myself, two conditions over the last 4.5 months that I came off cycle and did post-cycle therapy, like I said, I was getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. Now, part of that is psychological, and part of that is, because my testosterone levels are declining, even though I was in a caloric surplus. So my body composition is getting worse, and my exercise performance is going down, right? Part of that is psychological, but I also feel like, why am I wasting my time in the gym when I can take that 2 hours that I'm putting in the gym being unproductive, regarding my bodybuilding journey?
Right.
Why am I not spending that on my business? So I am. And over the last 4 months, my business has gone up substantially. Even though I was training before, now in the last 3 weeks, I mean, since February I didn't train, right? And my, the 2 hours extra that I have in a day has been really productive for my business endeavors. So that's how I justify it. Plus, by the time I'm ready to go back to the gym, it's an uphill climb instead of downhill,
Right.
which sucks. And then when you go uphill, you can get a little bit of stamina back and a little bit of strength back, because you're basically starting from zero again. Just like the time when I traveled, I went to the gym, I could only do 25-pound dumbbells.
Yeah.
And then the next week, 30, and then 35. Right. And so the road down is a lot less enjoyable than the road up. So I'd rather have myself decline. And I'll do a video about it in the future, about the mentality of stopping with bodybuilding, because I've gone through this process now 3 times. One time when I broke my leg in a motorcycle accident, second time when I traveled, and now.
Wow.
And it's honestly, it's not a big deal. it's really not a big deal. But if if you have more than bodybuilding going on, it's okay. But if you're like a one-dimensional meathead, then then it's very tough, and your entire livelihood depends on it.
For sure. And I think it depends on like how much people put into it and your investment in it. And
Hmm.
also I think like for me, like I've always said, like I'm just on the cusp of like if you meet me in person,
Hmm.
like I'm not a big guy. Like I'm 6'1" and I'm like,
Hmm.
I go between 190 and like 200 pounds, right? So like at
Okay.
best, I
Yeah.
have like an athletic physique. So I feel like if you're like 250 and you go down to like 220, you're
Hmm.
still to every normal person like that you could still have that identity as like a fit bodybuilder guy. If I lose even 10 pounds of muscle, I've just crossed over into like, just like do you even lift territory, which I'm like almost at anyway. So
That's
it
so
becomes, yeah.
I went from 255 to 200, right? So I dropped close to 55 pounds.
Yeah, it's a big
But I
difference.
live in Thailand, so I'm still huge.
Right, exactly.
But I'll be honest, like 255 for me was extremely enjoyable in the gym for the 1 or 2 hours that I was there.
Yeah, but
And
the
the
rest of
rest
the
of the
life.
day, I felt the rest of the time I felt like a freak,
Yeah,
And every time I go out, everybody's staring, And then you go shopping for clothes, and everything's too small.
sure.
You go outside and you're
Especially in
sweating
Thailand, man.
buckets.
I probably don't fit in
Yeah, right.
anything.
So I'm handicapping myself by being bigger. So I always felt like around 200, 225, I feel comfortable and big, but not too big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a gin pop word, I know, but it's I'm slowly turning into gin pop right now. So
Right.
it's I think I'll stay. When I go back into training around 200, 225. I had my stints up to 240, 250, 255, and after being there for a while, and it's a lot of fun in the gym, and it's cool. It's good for your business, and you're yoked and all that stuff.
Right.
But it's not sustainable. It's
How
never
much did you weigh in
sustainable.
those pictures with you doing the pose? That's like your
Yeah,
thumbnail.
that's plastered everywhere. 225.
Okay. So you're pretty
Yeah,
lean there. Yeah.
yeah, lean about 8% body fat, not stage shredded, but
Right. Right.
maybe. And it's after water manipulation and carb loading and all that stuff. And yeah, about 225 in the morning of the shoot. So it's
Do you
pretty good.
guys? I remember hearing you on a podcast, and I actually don't watch many podcasts at all, like in like the fitness
Mhm.
space, because I feel like I've just been inundated with it for so many years. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've definitely checked out a few of yours and Leo's, and you
Hmm.
mentioned, I think at some point you mentioned like your neck size at like 255 compared to now. Have you ever measured it?
No, but it's a lot less for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I never had sleep apnea, or
Hmm.
I didn't really snore because I always did my cardio and I progressed in weight very, very slowly.
Hmm.
So a lot of people would say, yeah, well, what's the point? But I like to just acclimatize to the increasing body weight. And I do that with most of my clients, just slow, steady progression so you don't get these weird side effects. So
Yeah.
my neck was never really big, even though I trained traps like there was no tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
people ask me about neck training because I did make a couple videos on it. And because I mean, I started with like a pretty thin neck and I worked it up
Hmm.
to like I would say an average
Same,
neck.
same. I had like, pencil neck was applicable back then.
Yeah,
So
and
we would do
neck
the
really
like the,
like
did you do the reverse, what is a leg curl? You go into the leg curl and you,
no, I never did. I just bought a
I,
harness.
Okay, yeah. So I did the harness and the reverse neck curl,
Yeah,
or hamstring curl, and then just do it for your neck. I did it for like years,
yeah,
when I was still drug free, and then I realized, with a little bit of steroids and shrugs will get the job done.
right,
So
right.
after 10 years of trying drug free,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, so I was able to gain an inch on my neck at the same body weight. So like
Okay.
somebody made a comment in one of my last videos and they're like, "Oh, you think you really couldn't gain any more muscle? That doesn't make sense." And I was like, "No, I never said I couldn't gain any more muscle. Obviously,
Hmm.
like if I go from 200 to 250, I'll have more muscle mass. I'll just have a
Right.
lot more fat mass. The whole point is
Also,
when
yeah.
you cut back down to the same body
Hmm.
fat, will you be bigger, right?
Right.
And
That's the whole
so
point.
right. And
Hmm.
so even after having lifted for, I think at the time, 14 years or whatever, nothing
Hmm.
else was growing, but I actually put a little over an inch on my neck. So I was like, I don't have at all a big neck, but I was happy to gain an inch at all anywhere
Yeah,
at
it's
that point.
an inch gained, right? It doesn't matter where you gain it, and
Right.
in the end, it's extra muscle and more contours to your physique.
Yeah. And a neck is really, and again, I'll never have this look, but like it's funny. I even remember like in my yearbook in like high school, and like you just see from like
Oh
here
yeah,
up on
yeah, yeah,
people, and you could just
yeah,
see like some guys just look like really tough, and those are the
yeah.
guys with a big neck, right, and the jaw and
Hmm.
everything. It's like a neck and traps and everything that I feel like they very much signify like a powerful look. You know what I
Well,
mean?
that's the first thing you see, right?
Yeah.
When you that's what most people think. So, I think I had similar, philosophies. Like I need to have this rugged and masculine look, but I completely let that go after I moved away from the Western world,
Yeah.
and I
Well, in
see
Thailand, I
guys.
think they're the more
You
feminine
don't need to.
features.
I'm already more masculine than general population here, and even when I was drug free, I was already a little bit more masculine than general populations, because of the racial difference
Yeah.
and how on their culture, the men here are not as masculine as the
Right.
what we consider masculine,
Yeah.
as the men in the Western world, and then you could say that the men in the Western world are not as masculine as the guy that the men that come from Africa.
Hmm.
I mean, there's always a desire for certain women to get a little bit more masculine,
Right.
yeah, right. So the intermixing is totally fine. Everybody has their preference. I just noticed by changing like countries, you get a little bit of a different outlook
Sure.
regarding to what you want. Like I see in the Western world now, everybody's growing beards
Hmm.
because you it's a little bit more rugged and you get a little bit more respect. And I remember Dan, the bodybuilder in Thailand, when he
I don't
went
know.
back from yeah, as another guy that lived here in Thailand, and he was there like for 2 years, and then he went back to the States, and he's like, dude, I got to grow a beard because nobody takes you serious without a beard. It's
Yeah.
like, what? It's so because I've been here for 15 years, right? It's a completely different country and culture, and I remember when I was younger, you always have this a little bit of a alpha attitude,
Yeah.
and when you go out and you're with groups of people and there's other groups of people, and quick with your words to hold your ground in situations. And here it's completely unnecessary
That's
to the point
interesting.
I'm a little bit worried if I go back to the Western world again. If I get into
Uh,
a situation, will I be able to hold my own?
yeah. Right. That's interesting.
Right?
I've never been to
Yeah.
any Asian countries, so just from like what people have told me about it, that sounds
It's
about accurate.
very, very laid back.
Yeah.
Very stress
Um,
free, until you start driving.
oh yeah. I was gonna bring up. I heard you guys talking about like HCG and
Hmm.
buying things from like online pharmacies and stuff. Because this is something I did talk with Leo about because
Yeah.
there was a valsartan recall a couple
Right.
years back,
Yeah.
and it was said to have some carcinogens in it. And I said to Leo because he's like so on top of health, like to like a much higher degree than almost anybody. And I was
I
kind of
think so.
surprised he kind of brushed it off. He was like, I was just like, he just didn't seem that concerned about it, which really surprised
Hmm.
me. But now this is something that's supposed to be FDA regulated, right? So I've always said, like, I know plenty of people who will go on like these various websites online and they'll order stuff.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's just like my background, but I think it's nuts because I just think like you just have no idea what you're getting. And I'm
You
sure
never
you
know.
probably disagree with me, but
No, I agree. I totally agree. You never know. That's why I
yeah,
made a video about it. Said not all pharmaceuticals are the same
yeah,
because you have
it's just
generics and different brands, and there's still stuff that passes manufacturing scrutiny
yeah,
all the time. Just like in the food industry. You buy a bag of nuts one time, it's good, and the next time it has a heavy metal contamination.
yeah. But
You
there's,
never
I
know.
mean, you never know, of course, but at least I think when stuff is regulated by the FDA, not that it's flawless at all, obviously, right? There's that
Hmm.
whole issue and things are recalled at times,
Yeah.
but you will often find out that something is recalled. I just think like the guys, like for instance, you guys were talking about the difference between urine derived versus recombinant
Yeah. Hmm.
HCG, right?
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, there's never been a documented case of so there are studies showing prion contamination in urine
Hmm.
derived HCG. That was one of the issues of why they only use recombinant
Right.
HGH now, right? Because people were
Hmm.
actually getting CJD from
Yeah,
growth
they were
hormone
getting
derived from
weird.
cadavers.
Same as with the insulin derived from pigs. They got some
Yeah.
weird or suppressive response, and it's like you have recombinant HMG and
Hmm.
urine derived HMG, which contains LH and FSH
Right.
from purified from urine. but there might be some contaminants in there, peptide contaminants or something else, because they pass through the filters or however they separate it.
Yeah.
And I've heard and I've experienced myself a difference between urine purified HMG and a recombinant HMG.
Yeah.
You get
I
like a
just
little bit of
imagine.
irritation at the injection site, and like, what is this?
Yeah,
But it
and
could
again,
also
I
be.
don't know from like personal use, but I would imagine like if somebody was like, well, I'm really terrified of getting some like brain disease from the prions, I would
Mhm.
never trust, again, just personally, that like if I went on like an online underground website and ordered a recombinant HCG, that it
Uh-huh.
was truly recombinant. And now there probably are some
Yeah.
examples, but like it's just I don't know. Like, I just think that it's very unlikely that all of these are going to be what you think they are.
If you buy generic, you don't know. If you buy something that's actually FDA approved in the Western world, you go to drugs.com and there's an entry for it,
Hmm.
then you should be okay, unless it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
counterfeit. Unless it's counterfeit, which happens also. Just had a guy who bought ACG from one of the more notable, pharmaceutical grade websites, and he got an ACG, didn't work. His testosterone didn't go up, estrogen didn't go up. His pregnancy test came back negative.
Yeah.
You
So it's like,
know,
what were
is
you
he
injecting? That stuff to me,
just some random peptide relabeled?
yeah. Ugh.
No, so this is when you want to get your hands dirty with steroids, good luck. It's a deep
Yeah.
end. It's the same as with street drugs. You buy MDMA tablets, and I mean, I used to party in Holland. I mean, come on now. I used to be young too, go to raves and stuff, but you never really know what you would get. One time was 50 milligrams, one other time was 75, another time 15, and
Right.
then the other time was just amphetamines.
Yeah.
But you
Right. I
take
mean,
you take you take the risk for enjoyment. You never know.
yeah, it's scary, man. And again, I'm just such a neurotic with my health that like I would
Yeah.
need like I've paid more for like pharmacy drugs that because like I
Mm-hmm.
could have gotten the generic with my insurance and it would be like 10
Mm-hmm.
bucks, but I'd just be
Yeah.
like, I'd rather just have and even then that is regulated. So now if you talk to like 18-year-old me, I cared about health, but I think once you've had certain
There's
health
levels.
issues, yeah, like when you've gone through health issues, you just start to realize like, oh wait, what if this were to happen? What if this were to happen? Like I took
Mm-hmm.
Accutane in high school,
Right.
and it kind of messed me up. And there was actually even like a big lawsuit, like a class action lawsuit against
Mm-hmm.
Accutane, and there's all this stuff, and you just start to wonder like, did I just like permanently damage myself? And you never
Mm-hmm.
know. So like my dad goes to this clinic with people with like really really dry eyes, like to the point that like these people want to
Mm-hmm.
kill themselves because it's so
Not that
bad.
bad, eh?
Yeah.
Jesus.
And like half the people there were people who
Mm-hmm.
had like LASIK eye surgery or took Accutane, which kind of
Mm-hmm.
dries you out. And so
Yeah.
it just it's almost annoying to be part of that world or to like get too delved into medicine and because you just think everything's going to kill you. So I'm too far on that side for sure. I
Mm-hmm.
think it'd be healthier to be a little bit more balanced. It's just that's how I am. But I
Yeah.
see a lot of people who are on this side, and it's like, dude, like you really need to start caring more about what you're putting in your body.
And you know what the problem is? Like all the information that's out there today, let's say you do all the research and you come to the conclusion that it's safe. You do 10 research 10 years later, you might not draw the same conclusion. And then you still feel stupid about yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Because at that time you were incredibly health conscious and you put everything into practice that you thought was correct. And then new data comes out in the meantime that it's not correct.
Yeah.
And then you still feel a little bit sick, like why did I do that to myself, and it's as new the data comes out, I wish I never took DNP or Trenbolone, right? The most of the compounds I experimented with, I wish I didn't try, even though I did all the research I could possibly do before experimenting with them.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I'm like, just test primo anavar, GH insulin, done. you know
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. It's
it's
scary stuff, man.
it's
So
and even the pharmaceutical grade, like real pharmaceuticals, even has issues, like
you can. Yeah.
Perigrow testosterone cypionate. The whole batch is underdosed, 9 to 8 milliliters instead of 10.
Mm,
Some of the generic medications, one batch is good, another batch is bad.
yeah.
We're all
Scary stuff.
rolling the dice with everything we do.
Yeah.